And one thing I wanted to share with you is, uh, yeah, and our webinar today is about being going on and absolutely understanding that sometimes we just get stuck in the mud because of our thoughts, because of things that happen. I just had a conversation. I'm not going to betray her trust by telling her story, but you know, sometimes we just get stuck somewhere and don't know how to get out of that and don't know how to get started again. And so I'm going to share some thoughts and ideas for how that might be possible for you to do that. It doesn't even matter, actually, whether or not it happened because you were victimized or whether you did some kind of self-sabotage, which many of us do. So I'm going to help you with that today. And this is actually my Thursday content, which I will put up on my blog on Thursday. One thing that happens a lot, especially when you're first starting out in any kind of home business, is that there's a lot of learning to do. And sometimes people don't understand exactly where you are, or they get impatient with you because you're not where they are. And that's kind of tough because most of the time people have great intentions to actually do something, and you wonder why they're not taking action, but they aren't taking action because they don't know how to get started. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Whether you've been in something and you kind of stalled and you're coming back to it, or whether you're starting something new. Either way, the first part of it is to try to give yourself a couple of action steps every day, something you do believe you can accomplish. And don't forget to put the things we've talked about in there, like putting yourself first and your personal development. But can you be in learning mode only? Only if you don't want to make money. There are things that people can do. Maybe for some people it is mostly going to be about learning a particular strategy and then following through with that. And with others, it's going to be a little bit more involved. For me, I was financially not able to go right out and start buying solo ads or ads. And so I learned how to use Facebook and YouTube. I learned how to create videos, and I learned how to talk to people. Now, was I good at it? Not at first. In fact, I probably pissed a lot of people off because I could offend them quickly because I would, you know, in a lot of cases, sometimes I would take offense by something they said instead of learning to maybe not make a judgment on what they had to say and maybe ask another question just so that I could get a greater clarification on what it was that they really wanted to understand. And when I got to the point where I could see it that way, and most people want to be successful, most people want to get to a better place financially, and they don't know how to start. And this is not necessarily a how-to, but there will probably be some how-tos connected with it. For instance, if you decide that you want to be somebody that talks to people on chat and maybe even phone calls via the social medias or whatever, which I have gotten good at, the very first step is to realize, okay, now how would I talk to this person if I was face to face? Most of us do not go out and just start right in with a sales pitch. At least we learn real quickly that's not a very good way to do it because it's a quick turnoff and people do not like it. Still got a little bit of a tickle. I may cough once in a while. It doesn't mean anything. But anyway, what kinds of things can you say? Well, first of all, people like it. Sorry about that. People really like it when you actually show an interest in them instead of trying to convince them to look at you. They're not usually attracted to all of the wonderful benefits of a particular company. But they will be attracted to a genuine person that actually cares about that person. Now, this is something that you could decide, is it going to be a goal, not something you're going to, sorry, it's not going to be something that you're going to automatically be totally good at. Unless you've done that in the past, unless you've been good at it in the past. There was one gal on my team that said something that was very revealing to me, and that was that I pointed her towards personal development and how important that was. And she told me that at first that pissed her off. She thought that I was being mean to her because I wasn't giving her all the how-tos and really teaching her something, but she wasn't ready for it and she wasn't going to do it. And now she's a totally different person because she did follow through with doing some mindset changes. And that's the first piece. Number one on your list needs to be some kind of personal development. Everybody has a personal preference on what that could be. It could be, if you really love to read, it could be reading. It could be listening to an audio. It could be a combination. It could be somebody's meditation program that they enjoy. It could be a lot of things. It could be a combination of those. But you need to have something that helps to build you and helps to make you aware of whatever possible personality things going on or old thought patterns that are not helpful before how to start to work. I put a status up just now on Facebook about how if you don't get your mind right, the how-tos are not going to work either. And that's not precisely what I said, but the gist is the mind has to be right. Because if you don't have a belief that it's going to work, it's not. And then learn a particular trait that you need to learn. For instance, talking to people. That is actually a money-making activity if you can get good at that. And it doesn't mean that you learn how to throw your presentation all over the place to people directly, because that doesn't get them. What does, though, is that you learn to be a problem solver. And the very first part of that is that you're willing to listen. And you're willing to really listen, not with the idea that I am going to figure out how to sell this person, but what truly is this person's problem? And can I truly help that person? When you have that kind of an agenda, it's going to be much more authentic, much more open, and people are going to be attracted to it. This takes practice. I want to emphasize this. This takes practice. When you first got onto a bike and you were 5 years old or whenever it was when you started to ride a bike, you were not perfect at it when you first did it. In fact, I believe I skinned up a face, my arms, my knees, many times before I became good at riding a bike. And even as an adult, and I've told this story before, I got my first 10 speed only about 6 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't remember when we bought it. Haven't been on it again for a while because we need to repair it. But the point is when I first got it, when I was growing up, our brakes were on the pedals, and now all of a sudden we have exactly how to use it. And the very first thing I did when I got on the bike was I was coming down a hill kind of fast, and I hit my left handbrake really hard. And the bike just went jerk, and it stopped. And guess what happened? I landed on my head. It's really kind of lucky that I didn't actually break my neck the way I landed, but I think it's because it happened so quickly I didn't have time to have any reaction or guard, and I fell off the bike immediately. And the point I want to make with that is because I was trying something absolutely brand new, had no experience before. I definitely fell off the bike. I definitely caused myself some injury. And after I got better at riding the bike, I got so that I knew how to use that brake in a way that was a much better choice. I came to a stop a lot slower, didn't throw myself off onto the pavement and hurt myself. And that's the same thing with learning any of the skills that you might have to learn with using social media, with building relationships, which are so critical to actually building a business. It just doesn't work that way. And there is really actually no such thing as an overnight success. I know you see those stories all the time, but you don't know the backstory. The backstory was that there was struggle, there was trouble, there was difficulty, there was a long learning process before they got to that overnight success place. They didn't get there from absolute no knowledge in a real tiny period of time. They just didn't. That just doesn't happen. What does happen is that after a while you get to a place where things start to be easier. Just like when you drive a car today or you ride your bike or whatever, you do it with confidence and competence because you've done it long enough that you don't have to think about every little piece of it. And that can also be the truth with building your business. You can get to that place where you have those skills and you're confident and you're competent about it. And I've talked about that before too. So give yourself a smaller goal to start with. Don't immediately think you're going to have 30,000 in 30 days because that isn't really practically true for somebody that's brand new. Let's be totally honest, that's not true for somebody that's brand new. What probably is more likely is a couple of hundred in the first month if you're absolutely brand new. You can get there faster if you have good training, but you still have to put in the work. You still have to work on your mindset. You still have to take money-making activities, and it also depends on how much time you have. If you work full-time, quite obviously, you might take a little longer because you don't have the kind of time that somebody that was to the point where they didn't have to work outside their home and has more time. There is a difference. So I'm giving you some realistic thoughts here to ponder on. So when you talk to people, remember that they are people. They have feelings. They have problems. They want your help, but they don't want to be sold into something. They don't want to feel like that's your only motivation. And I've done that too. And I know how it feels when you struggle to get people to buy your stuff and you don't have the skill set yet to do it. Then you're frustrated and they are frustrated and you go in circles. So I've probably taken longer than I wanted to, but I hope you got something from that. And this is going to be posted on my blog on Thursday. And I'm going to be traveling that day. All day Thursday I'm going to be traveling, going to Orlando for our Empower Network, Fighting the Forces of Evil. Don't you love those kind of names? I just think they're pretty funny. But understand what they're really saying there is that we want to fight these misconceptions and these lies that are out on the internet sometimes, like the one, I made 30,000 in 30 days. Is that possible? For somebody with some skill, absolutely it's possible. With somebody that is absolutely brand spanking new, that doesn't understand how much of the process of actually building yourself also along the way is, how important that is, I don't want you to get the feeling that you don't have to do the work to get to the place you want to get. Set a goal that truly can be possible. Because for some people, even making a new $500 in a month could be life-changing, or 1,000. Is that exciting and sexy? Maybe not, but it certainly would make you feel good to accomplish that. And when you can lay the foundation of another success on top of another success on top of another success. That's a much better goal than setting something that's totally beyond your reach. And that doesn't mean you can't do 30,000 in a month after a period of time when you've grown yourself and your eyes are bigger and your vision is longer. So I hope that's been helpful. Again, look for this on my blog. I will share that with you, and I'm going to call it a day.